Star Wars 7 by 7 episode 3101. It's our continuing series of 2023 previews and 2022 year-end reviews for Star Wars storytelling. And today we're taking a slight detour in the sense that we're not going to be covering one particular type of storytelling. Instead, we're going to cover one initiative of storytelling. Yes, it's the ginormous multimedia, multi-platform, multi-mega, incredible High Republic initiative. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7 by 7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So 2022 was spectacular for the High Republic in that Phase 1 came to an astonishing conclusion, and then after what seemed like an interminable wait, 2022 also saw the launch of Phase 2 of the High Republic initiative. Now, the storytelling for Phase 1 took place over the course of just a bit more than a year, and it looks like they're going to stretch out the storytelling for Phase 2 across a little bit more than a year, although it seems like the actual number of stories we're getting is comparatively less, in that there were 3 waves of storytelling for Phase 1 of the initiative, and it looks like there's only going to be 2 waves for Phase 2. So Wave 1 basically took us through the end of the year with Convergence, the novel by Zoraida Cordova, and then Path of Deceit, as mentioned, and then also the quest for the Hidden City. And the storytelling is going to continue pretty immediately in January with the audiobook original, The Battle of Jedha by George Mann. That releases on Tuesday, January 3rd. And Penguin Random House Audio was kind enough to send along a review copy for me to check out. I'm in the middle of it right now, and it is action-packed, and I'm through, I'll say, maybe 2/3 of it, and the quote-unquote battle hasn't even yet started, and it's still action-packed. So yeah, I'm very curious to see where they're going with this, and I very much look forward to telling you more about it in just a few days. The script book for that will come out in mid-February, and then there will also be a reference book, an in-universe one, I believe, called Chronicles of the Jedi by Cole Horton. That also comes out in February, at the end of February. And then Wave 2 officially starts in April with the launch of Cataclysm by Lydia Kang and Quest for Planet X. That one's by Tessa Gratton. And then on May 2nd comes Path of Vengeance by Cavan Scott, and it is described in the publisher summary materials as the thrilling conclusion to Phase 2 of the High Republic initiative. So that seems to confirm for us that we are only getting 2 waves, and we'd been told that it was going to be shorter, so now we seem to have confirmation of exactly that. But even though the phase is, for all intents and purposes, concluded with that set of novels, there is still storytelling that's going to be happening with the High Republic later on in the year. So the manga that we had, The Edge of Balance, this one is subtitled Precedent. That is coming out, and it's supposed to be set in Phase 2 in late May. And then we have Volume 2 of the High Republic comic and Volume 2 of the High Republic Adventures comic. Those are coming out. Plus, there's also the miniseries The Blade by Charles Soule, which I think the first issue is out already, and it goes on for another few more issues. There's also going to be a 4-issue limited series from the High Republic Adventure series. That's the one for, generally younger readers, called The Nameless Terror. And there's going to be a one-shot comic called Quest of the Jedi, written by Claudia Gray, that will also be coming out. And then in September of this year, we're getting a short story anthology from all 9 authors who are working on the High Republic initiative at this time. And those stories are coming from across the initiative, so to speak, in that some of them are Phase 1, some of them are Phase 2, and some of them have been labeled as after Phase 1, but not yet in Phase 3. That's pretty fascinating, because it suggests that there's going to be a time jump of some kind between the end of Phase 1 and the start of Phase 3, but how long, we don't necessarily know. I can't imagine it's going to be hugely significant in terms of a time jump, like it's not going to be another 150-year situation. I mean, considering the way we ended Phase 1, you would think that Phase 3 is going to deal with the aftermath of the events and also deal with Marchion Ro, depending how you want to say it, and how they're going to bring him to justice once and for all. You would think something like that would be at issue, and so you would think that they would have to stay pretty close to the events of the fallen star and the end of phase 1 in order to make that happen, that he's not going to be just 30 years later, he's still on the run or anything like that. Oh, and there's one other one I forgot to mention. So there's a 10-issue Yoda limited series that's running right now, and 3 of those issues, the ones that are running actually at this moment, are in the High Republic time period, and they're supposed to culminate in a 10th issue that I think brings everything together. So maybe that 10th issue will also bear on High Republic stuff, but it looks like the way that they're setting things up is such that we will not see the launch of Phase 3 of the High Republic until the beginning of 2024. And that, of course, would also line up rather well with The Acolyte, which is filming right now, and it's supposed to take place toward the end of the High Republic era, and coming out in 2024, sometime very likely, so tying into the events of Phase 3, I would imagine, as well. And there isn't anything announced specifically about how long this may go on, but there is, of course, the Tales of Enlightenment short stories in Star Wars Insider magazine from George Mann. I imagine we'll get a few more of those in 2023, though it's hard to say how long it will necessarily go on. We have the short story anthology coming out in September, and we also have the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi happening in 2023. I don't think they'll do short stories in Insider related to that, because they will probably do another From a Certain Point of View collection for that. So that's kind of up in the air, and I think we'll discuss it a little bit more when we get into the short story section of our 23 preview, just of general Star Wars stories, not just High Republic specific stories. We've got a lot to talk about actually with books and comics and audiobooks and short stories overall, but for the High Republic, I think that right there gives you everything that you need to know ahead of 2023 and looking back on 2022 in brief, and that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.